the big revelation, which everybody has been talking about, was Anthony Edwards becoming kind of the guy
Oh, yeah.
on this team. And you could feel it in that Lithuania game when they really needed, some baskets. And, this is what happens in international. You just kind of like, okay, everybody looks at the one guy. All right, you got to do stuff. Were you prepared for how close he was to mid 2000s Dwayne Wade? like just kind of that 06 playoffs run Wade of like, you're not really a point guard, but you have the ball all the time. You go by anybody you want. You're not an incredible outside shooter, but you're good enough, and you could just get contact and bounce off people. I had never really thought of him in the Wade context, but that was my big takeaway.
Well, especially against international level competition, right? Where the athletic gap for Edwards is even bigger than it is in the NBA. And normally when we see slashers like him, again, a guy who's so explosive off the dribble, who can get to his spots so easily, they don't always translate that well to international play, but
right.
He has just enough of a jumper to keep people honest. He's been consistent enough from the mid-range to really punish some teams. And man, just with the way Team USA tries to get up and down in transition, it really plays well for him. But to your point, he's been their best half-court weapon to date. It's not really even close. And they're going to need a lot more of that because otherwise, I don't know, Team USA's half-court offense has been maybe as gummy as we should have expected, given the track record with some of these teams in previous international competition. But they're going to have to pull it out against some pretty tough competition. It's certainly tougher than Italy, who we saw them dispatch pretty easily early this morning.
Yeah, they're still favored on FanDuel. We need the Wednesday games to know, I think, what the matchups are going to be. But USA is minus 180 and Canada's plus 360 and Germany plus 850. But Franz got hurt. They were looking a little more dangerous maybe than they are with a semi-injured Franz. The Canada, I can't wait to talk about the Canada piece of it. But with the Edwards thing, did it change your feeling? Like, does any of this affect how you feel about the upcoming season? Because Edwards, I think, is the only guy on this team that made me maybe rethink a little in my head what the ceiling of that team is. I don't think Minnesota's going to win the title.
Yeah.
But, could he become one of the 7-8 best guys in the league, like what happened with SGA last year, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, all right, if you're making any top 10 list, SGA has to be on that list. And I was wondering, could that be a possibility with Edwards? Where do you stand on that?
I think if it was just FIBA, I would be a little bit more skeptical about the long-term prospect. But because we've seen this arc from him going back, especially kind of the back half of the regular season, some into the playoffs, his progression, reading the floor as a playmaker, kind of being more, to your point, in a lead guy context, whether that's, point guard or even as a dominant ball handler or not, all that stuff is really promising. They still have a lot to figure out, obviously, in Minnesota in terms of making all the pieces fit just so, and all these bigs and kind of figuring all that out. But the fact that he can be this kind of player, and worst case scenario, you can fall back on having the most dynamic creator on the floor. It's a pretty nice floor to have in a really crowded Western Conference. So I don't know how optimistic I am that they're going to reach like their maximum potential.
Yeah.
But they could level out as just being consistently better than some of these other teams out West just because of him.
We saw the flashes with him defensively, and he's had a couple stretches in these games where he's just like, I'm going to absolutely torture this guy. I'm just a way better athlete. And I think that's been startling too, right?
Yeah. On ball, he's always been pretty sensational. Off ball, I think we can politely say he can get a little sleepy at times.
Yeah.
And you still see that some with Team USA, but they switch so much more in international play than the Timberwolves do. And so that really, when you think about why Team USA plays the way it does, so much of it is just like maximizing the talent and the athleticism they have available. And that's kind of like most accentuated through players like Edwards, who can be on the ball as much as possible. Don't have to worry about trailing cutters and working like the backdoor stuff quite as often. He can just do what he does best defensively. And that's just be a really dogged, get into your jersey, really make your life a living hell kind of ball denier and ball stopper. And like that's a really fun player to watch. Can he be that all the time in a system that doesn't switch? I have my doubts, and that's where we need to see him like really grow up as a defender and kind of, his awareness and his IQ need to come along a little bit on that end. But he's such a great athlete. His instincts are really good. And God, I mean, so many of these guards in international play just don't have the ability to get past him at all or really even keep their dribble alive against him sometimes.
He's hitting every checkpoint you'd want to hit Now, he hasn't had like the, crazy playoff moment yet. But when you think he's 22 years old, but, if you're going to be a special basketball player, you kind of want him to be special in this tournament, even though he's only 22. And I think reading between the lines and the quotes and, just from some of the whispers around, I don't think they expected him to be the guy on this team, and I think they've been pretty honest about that.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to come out and say, look, we thought this was going to be Brunson at the end of games, but they've said it in so many different ways. And I do think they felt like Brunson was going to be the crunch time guy, and you felt it in Lithuania. Lithuania, they played lights out. They make every three, super physical. They finally put a little dent in the Reeves hype, which was, and I'm the number one Reeves guy who hates the Lakers.
Yeah.
But they posted him up a couple times. It was like, whoa, what's this? Are we seeing this next year? Everybody's kind of gone up and down, but I think Edwards has been the big winner.